Welcome to episode number 300 of the Beyond Social Media Show, the podcast for
Woohoo,
all of you. Yes,
300.
exactly. Podcast for all of you marketing, advertising, public relations, and communications professionals. You can find us by searching for Beyond Social Media Show. We are recording on March 22, 2020, in the midst of the coronavirus slowdown, shutdown, lockdown, shut in, homebound. Wow. So we don't have a particular method of operation for this particular episode. It's just going to be coronavirus all the time. We're going to talk about just some of the observations that we've noticed from the past week, what some brands are doing, how businesses are adjusting, some of the best and some of the worst, but we're not going to stick to our typical format this time. We're just going to have kind of a free-for-all. And we're going to go through a lot of stuff. So this is going to be a longer than usual episode, likely. We'll see how that turns out. But let's start it off with leadership. And one thing that as I've been like, BL and I both are news junkies. You can't be in public relations or advertising without being a news junkie. And so we have a built-in habit of following the news constantly.
All day and all night.
In this time of crisis, that's what you do. You're locked in on what's the latest and what do I need to know and blah, blah, blah. So, so a lot of observations on that. And one of the things that I noticed is I've been following the press conferences of Governor Cuomo of New York, who has been, they've been broadcasting those live
governor.
on MSNBC, DL's governor. I've been watching the White House's press conferences, and I've been watching my own governor's, Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota, his press conferences, which he's doing. So the timeline for me here in the Central Time Zone is around 11 o'clock is when Governor Cuomo comes on.
President Cuomo.
Hashtag President Cuomo. And then around 1 o'clock is when the White House typically has their briefings, such as they are. And then 2 o'clock is when Governor Walz has his briefings here in Minnesota. And the contrast, the bookends of the two governors, of Governor Cuomo and Governor Walz, addressing their states and doing so in a manner of factual, having PowerPoint presentations of the things that they're talking about, being calm. This is what the scope of the problem is. Here are the things that we're doing to address the problem. These are our fears of the problem, the challenges that we face. We're going to get, and then reassuring, we're going to get this through this together, blah, blah, blah. They are both case studies in leadership and communications in times of crisis, compared glaringly to the White House press conferences, which are devoid of useful information, full of spin, and really
and lies.
And
but
lies.
I'll see your governors and I'll raise you too, because the governors of Connecticut and New Jersey are equally doing a wonderful job of keeping people informed. And our three states are working together. And, you know, the White House has become the briefings have become a substitute for the rallies, and they're just full of lies. And there's poor Dr. Fauci, and he has to say, no, that's not true. No, I wouldn't say that, you know, and you just wonder, like, how long is that guy going to last? But it is a study in contrast, and it's rather horrifying. So Jay Rosen at PressThink said yesterday, and I completely agree with what he said, why is the media covering the White House briefings live? Just listen to them, cover them after the fact, after the show, with fact checks, so that people actually know what the facts are, because you sure won't know that. And, you know, what we need the most right now is leadership. But just earlier today, Trudeau in Canada did a recording, did a conference addressing children and young people and saying, thank you for letting your parents work from home. Thank you for doing your schoolwork around the table. You know, we know you're worried. I'm sorry that you kids didn't have your spring break. I'm sorry that students, you know, can't have any fun. But, you know, we're going to get through this together. And I just want you to know that we all appreciate what you're doing. Like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Why hasn't anybody else said that? He's talking to kids. Kids are terrified.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they don't understand what's going on.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's really, that was a wonderful thing to see. But, you know, I mean, I'm sure there are other places where there are governors doing a very good job, but
Well, they have to, because we're
they're
kind
on
of on
their
our own.
own. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, go find your own equipment. Yeah, make your own masks. What do you want from me? I take no responsibility is what 45 has to say.
Yeah. The other thing I've noticed is just consuming all this media, watching TV nonstop. The coverage is everybody's, because they need to social distance, because they're becoming like podcasts, like video podcasts, like BL, you and I do. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of so we're, as you mentioned, there's a lot of you're seeing everybody's homes, but there's a lot of technical glitches that they're coming across, and the production values are plummeting, which kind of brings me to it's kind of normalizing video that isn't, you know, just high gloss and everything. So as we adapt to this marketing wise, I don't know that it is absolutely necessary for people to have the high gloss production values anymore if you're delivering the information that people need to know.
I think
Right?
that's true. The information is the key. I mean, the other morning, Al Roker, who's the weatherman on the Today Show, he forgot to pick up his microphone. So he was sitting at his kitchen table, and you know, and he was talking about, oh, right, I need a microphone, you know, and I mean, that was a minute that you couldn't hear him, and there's other sound issues, and you know, but they're showing up and they're doing their jobs, and that is incredible. I mean, really, because that means that they're home, you know, locked in. My family is on lockdown because my quarantine. You know, I mean, a lot of people are, but this is going to change everything. And also this whole remote working thing, I think, is going to be a permanent change.
I mean, yeah, I don't doubt that that's going to become much more widespread. We will see what life looks like on the other side of this, and whether we're actually going to return to, in large numbers, working in the same place. There's a lot to be said for working in face-to-face environments. There's a lot of things that you lose when you go to a virtual only environment, but you know, who knows? There's a lot of efficiencies on the plus side. There's a lot of efficiencies of working virtually as well. So
well, in one of the interviews that I did for Ad Age when Hangouts were big, I was talking to a firm that had offices in the US and in Canada and in, I think it was France, and they just kept their Hangout open all day. So it was as if they were in the office together, and they could talk to whomever at any time. And I think that you will see more of this develop, you know, and the fact that people are, I mean, I taught two people already today how to download and do Zoom and what kind of lights they need and all that sort of stuff, because they can't run their business otherwise. It's really, it's fascinating. I was on a Zoom meditation the other day with 20 people, which was fun.
a Zoom meditation?
Yeah,
How's that work?
We all meditated together on a Zoom.
I know nothing about meditation, but isn't meditation a solitary thing?
No, it was a guided meditation. It was really quite lovely. And then we talked about, you know, what we had, what came into our heads during it. It was really interesting.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
I had my, so viewers, listeners, we record this, BL sets it up. We record these episodes on Zoom, and we started doing Zoom after YouTube changed the way that they do their live streaming. So it just became easier for us to use Zoom than to use YouTube. I started this past couple of days, messing around with YouTube live streaming to figure out how to go back to that, because it requires software that you download and install and sync it with your YouTube channel. And now I've discovered that I can't do it directly from the software that I'm using. I need to pipe in Skype. So we'll try that out. BL will experiment with it and see how it works, and maybe we'll return to YouTube eventually. But
well, you do get better quality video.
Yeah.
You know, that's the thing. I
Yeah.
mean, our video is okay, but I mean, for the largest part and the podcast that I'm producing now, I mean, I'm telling people like the video is so we can see each other when we're speaking. It's not
Okay.
meant to be, you know, a movie theater quality. But
Yeah.
anyway, let's go to what brands are doing.
Well, one last thing. You
Yeah.
talked about your guided meditation. I had my first virtual happy hour on Friday. With I'd actually planned. We'd had planned it weeks in advance with a couple of my buddies to meet for happy hour, and then the world turned, and we decided to do a virtual one. So we did it with Google Hangouts, and it was a video call, and it worked pretty well. It worked pretty well. There were a couple of dropouts there, but yeah, it was pretty easy, and
We used
there's
to
a
do
lot of
that
that
on
going around.
Hangouts. Yeah, we used to do that on Hangouts. And one time there was something to do with bacon that I can't remember. Everybody was eating bacon. So, uh, so everybody really, you know, needs communication. We're all home by ourselves. So, Apple has updated Siri so that you can say, "Hey Siri, do I have coronavirus?" And she'll respond to questions, and she will give you a step-by-step questionnaire that, you know, will ask if they have if you have symptoms, if you have fever, if you have a dry cough, and then she'll tell you if you have extreme or life-threatening symptoms to consider calling 911. If you say your symptoms are not extreme, she'll tell you to stay home and avoid contact with other people. You know, it tells you all the things you need to know, and it provides. This is important. It provides users with a link to the App Store where you can download telehealth apps and potentially get virtual consultations, which is the big change that's going to happen in medicine. And the answers that Siri provides are from the U.S. Public Health Service, which is a division of the Department of Health and Human Services. And they also come from the Center for Disease Control. And so Apple has done a whole bunch of things to help to fight the pandemic, including $15 million in donations and contributing face masks to medical workers. But this thing with Siri may be the most conspicuous thing because everybody with an Apple device can quickly find out if they should be worried. And Facebook said, but they haven't done it yet, earlier this week that they were planning to launch a coronavirus information center that would be alongside your news feed and, you know, talk about taking social distancing seriously. And also they're talking about, but haven't done yet, a request to offer or ask for help. And then Google's website dedicated to information debuted on Friday. And so, you know, brands are trying. That helps.
Yeah, I noticed that there's a lot more everywhere. There's a lot more things popping up in my feeds or the content that I'm consuming online that is promoting actual quality information about coronavirus. I have a touch football group that on Facebook that we use to organize games, and I've been posting to it. You know, you guys should not be playing football now because you can spread this even if you don't have symptoms. Blah blah blah. They don't seem to be paying attention to me because I'm an old white guy, but but I did talk to the administrator about it, and that's been taken care of. But at the top of that Facebook group is a big ass banner about coronavirus from the CDC information, where to get it, and da da da. So I think that Facebook's algorithms noticed the conversations there, noticed that people were doing stuff, and put that there as a result. So that's good. You know, we need that kind of stuff. This is a fascinating story. It was reported first out by the New York Times, Donald McNeil. And if you watch Rachel Maddow, she covered it on her show as well. There's a company called Kinza Health, which makes smart thermometers. And they have more than 1 million that
the
they've
ones
sold.
you hold out?
Well, I don't know exactly.
They don't touch you, I think.
No, it's not that. It's an actual thermometer that you put in your mouth.
Oh.
But they're smart thermometers, so they sync with the mobile app, and they have made more than 1 million of them. And they record, they record fevers as soon as customers use them, right? So they have, for the last several years, been building these interactive maps that can accurately predict the spread of flu, and they do it 2 weeks before the CDC's own flu tracker does, because the CDC relies on reports from hospitals and from doctors and stuff. And so there's a lag time between those reports that come into CDC and the data that the smart thermometers are picking up immediately. So their data can presumably predict outbreaks of coronavirus. They are taking the data set that they already have and removing the data, the historical data, and reporting just the data that's coming in now, and they can see whether a particular location is over-indexing for flu-related symptoms, right? So it's something that the CDC should be paying attention to identify places where an outbreak is occurring of coronavirus. The company is now selling 10,000 thermometers a day, which is creating production problems for them, but also multiplying the amount of data that's coming in each day from those people that are using it now. So fascinating technology that can be very helpful. Also related to this, there's a Fast Company story by Christopher Zara that has 9 maps, and we'll link to them in the show notes, that could be helpful about understanding where pandemic may be reaching. Some of the maps are like, where are those age 65 and over who are working located throughout the United States, where seniors are living alone, where healthcare facilities are located. So interesting mapping data just in this new world that we live in.
This new world that we live in is a bit much, it really is. But I went to the eye doctor the other day, and before I could see the doctor, I mean, I was already in the office, so I'm not quite sure that this makes sense, but before I could see the doctor, they took my temperature with a thing that was held a few inches from my face. It didn't actually touch me, yeah. But, that was before you could go into the doctor's office. Sure, and yeah, I mean, you cannot be too, I mean, in many places before they come into work, they have to have their temperature taken at the door and all of that. So Twitter has stepped up, and this is from Twitter's marketing blog. They're offering perspective on how brands can communicate effectively in this crisis, and so many of them are not. Twitter is offering tips and resources for brands, and they start out by saying, let's be clear, this is not a marketing opportunity to capitalize on, and we do not recommend that brands opportunistically link themselves to a health scare. However, we want to recognize that this is a new reality and requires thoughtful navigation from all of us. So they ask you to ask some questions. Can you share positive stories that might uplift people and connect with your brand on Twitter? Can you have positive initiatives that you can talk about, things your company's doing? Can you bring your community on Twitter together in a positive way? And this includes advice on how to represent your brand appropriately and how your brand can help or be useful. It's also looking for opportunities to lead by example and do the right thing where it makes sense for your business. And a lot of businesses have stepped up to do the right thing. They suggest brands think about what people need right now, be thoughtful in their tone and their voice, and not forget some levity when appropriate. And that is a tough one, making light in this situation. But the page has examples of how brands are posting. So Google is making Hangouts Meet video conferencing available globally to anybody who has a G Suites account until July 1st. Now, to have a G Suites account, you have to pay $100 a year, but if you want to use Hangouts Meet video conferencing, that's well worth it. Slack is providing a guide to working remotely, for example. So a lot of brands are coming up with resources that they can offer. And I think that is really good advice. And I was glad to see that Twitter was doing that.
That's fantastic. This is, I got a Twitter story. It's not what Twitter's doing, it's how somebody was using Twitter. There's a guy named Jeffrey Zhang, who is the editor of a blog named Strange Harbors that covers film, television, and popular culture. He lives in New York. And he sent out a tweet last week or this past week, that read, I mostly talk about movies here, but here goes. We are currently pivoting our factory to solely make surgical masks and other medical garments in short supply. We can make 2 million masks a day and are looking to help in any way possible during this time, hashtag COVID-19. And then he followed up with another tweet, bureaucracy and red tape are making this hard, but if anyone knows any hospitals or facilities that are in need of the following, please DM me. And the list is surgical masks, face masks, surgical gowns, coveralls, gloves. And I'm like, how is a blogger
able to do that when the government can't?
Well, just know, how is a blogger doing this? Is this legit? I mean, it sounds fishy, right? How does this guy know anything about this? And it turns out that, well, he is legit. There's a Forbes story by Hang Xiao from years ago that reports about him and his family. So in May 2013, this guy launched Spectre and Company, which is an online retailer that sells quality dress shirts for men. He has a production facility in Shanghai, China. He owns the factory and owns his own supply chain. So yeah, he can do it. He has a video on this tweet that shows the masks going through the machine. He's retooled his factory to make PPE, personal protective equipment for health professionals, and put out a call on Twitter to, I need contacts of anybody in the healthcare of hospitals, of hospital associations, of doctors, of anybody that I can get. So now people responded. He's got a bunch of contacts, and now he's working with Governor Cuomo to help produce these. And hopefully,
my governor.
Hopefully, he'll be working with my governor as well. I did notice somebody pointed, yeah, contact Governor Walz in Minnesota. We need him too, because we are desperately short as well. I think what's going to happen in this whole thing is once New York gets through it, or maybe now that Washington's got through it, if you get Amazon involved and somebody who has logistics to move things around, take all of your ventilators that you're not using anymore because you've gone through the wave and ship them to the place that has the outbreak right now, right? You know, if somebody can figure that kind of stuff out, that seems like a logical thing to do to me, but I'm not a logistics professional.
But that makes a lot of sense. So back to these press advisories. Jay Rosen, who runs PressThink, said that they are no longer going to cover any live speech, rally, or press conference involving the president because the danger of passing along bad information is too great. Instead, we will attend carefully to see what he says. If we can, we'll independently verify any important news he announces, and then we'll bring it after we verify it. And even this far into his term, it's still, this is what Jay Rosen said, it's still a bit of a shock to be reminded that the single most potent force for misinformation the American public is the current president of the United States. For 3 years, this has been a massive and unsolved problem for the country and its political leadership, but now it's life and death. On everything that involves the coronavirus, Donald Trump's public statements have been unreliable, and that is why today we announced that we're shifting our coverage to an emergency setting. Also, it's become clear to me and many others that the daily briefings on the virus are morphing into substitutes for the rallies. And he goes on, it's a post really worth reading and a move that really, I think it was time to make.
Yeah, I completely agree with it. I have just started to turn off whenever they just turn it off, because it's useless. There's nothing there except for when Fauci talks, because he will jump in, and you'll notice he's very smart about it. He will jump in and say, well, the data says that, after Trump says something that's completely wrong, he'll jump in and say the data says this.
Right,
exactly. He's not contradicting him. He's not saying the president is wrong. He's saying the president is wrong without saying the president is wrong. So
he's a hero.
Yeah, he's the one person that I trust in that group. So I know that you've got a list, so why don't you follow your list with my list, but entertainment options.
Well, I have a good one for kids, and good. for anybody. Mo Williams, who is the Kennedy Center Education Artist in Residence, he invites you into his studio every day at 1 o'clock for the next few weeks, and he has doodle drawing sessions. And I got this from Lin-Manuel Miranda when he was on Jimmy Kimmel, and they both were doing that with their kids. And so he also has a game that he invented. But what's really sweet is then the kids can upload their doodles, and they are on the site every day. They're changing. So it's a great thing.
Awesome. Well, I've got a bunch of things. So if you've got extra time on your hands or you're cooped up, you want to go out, but you can't go out, we've got, I mean, people have stepped up to the plate, basically. One of my favorite bands, the Dropkick Murphys, streamed their live concert from Boston on St. Patrick's Day. It's available on Periscope. Professional sports have shut down. I was so excited about the Twins' upcoming season because they had a fantastic season last year, and they signed some additional players. They look like they're going to advance this year, but who knows if we're going to have a baseball season this year. But MLB has Major League Baseball has full games on YouTube, and you can actually watch every game for free from the 2018 and 2019 season on MLB.tv. Ken Burns has asked PBS to stream his documentary Baseball for free, so you can watch that. The NFL is offering complimentary NFL Game Pass, so you can watch full games on there for until May 31st.
Last year's games?
Yep. You
Okay.
need a fix. You need a fix. Sling TV is rolling out free streaming for select, not all, but some content. The Internet Archives has just opened up a VHS vault, VHS tapes that people have digitized, of 21,000 digital tapes that you can digitize tapes that you can watch for free. Among my favorites that I saw there was a MTV from 1984, brought me back to college, complete with the line that goes across the screen when you had VHS tapes. There's a Connections by James Burke. It's a fantastic show from BBC about the connections between ideas throughout history. It's really great. I recommend it highly to everybody. The Beatles' Let It Be movie is on there, and it's actually high quality, so I'll put links to that in the show notes. Actually, I think what we'll do, BL, is create a separate post that has all of these free stuff that people can watch.
Yeah.
Board games that are available, free cooking lessons. Star Tribune's Sharon Jackson has a list of free cooking lessons, and everybody's going to be doing a lot more of that. Universal is releasing new movies now straight to streaming. There's virtual museums and classic concerts that Flipboard has a list of. Drive-in theaters are newly popular. LA Times, Daniel Miller reports on that. That makes a lot of sense. And then lastly, the Uptown Theater here in Minneapolis has a Andy Slavitt, who's the former Medicaid, Medicare, and ACA head from Obama, and he's a must follow for the coronavirus stuff. Anyway, he posted a picture from the Uptown Theater in Minneapolis. Their marquee read, "I assure you, we're not open." And then below that, "You still here? It's over. Go home. Go." And on the other side, it said, "Now showing, no close encounters of any kind."
So the Metropolitan Opera has opera streaming, metropolitanopera.org. You can do virtual museum tours at museums all over the world. There are all kinds of education things for kids and children's activities. There's yoga online. My building has exercise online that you can do at 3 levels: beginner, intermediate, and advanced. There's CrossFit workouts. There's general tips for breaking up your day. And this is really cool. The world's largest documentary film festival is giving access to 302 films released between 1988 and 2019, free of charge. So there's a lot of really, good stuff out there. Thank goodness.
Yeah. This is sort of Gallows humor.
It's a lot of that.
Yeah, from billboards, Xander Zellner reports that REM's "The End of the World as We Know It" and "I Feel Fine" shot up to the charts for the first time since it was released, and so people are downloading that to listen to it. Michael Stipe of REM posted a video while he was self not quarantining, but self staying at home, whatever. Sheltering in place. I don't know what the phrase is. What's the phrase?
Self quarantine, I think.
But he wasn't required. I mean, he was just staying at home. He's not
Yeah, there's some
infected
word
or
for
anything
that.
like
I
that.
don't know.
I think it's called
Yeah.
staying at home.
That's what it should be called.
So Michael Stipe posted a video of him starting out singing "It's the End of the World as We Know It" and "I Feel Fine," and then use that to pivot into the 4 things that you need for coronavirus rules. Stay at home, wash your hands, act like you're already sick, and be careful where you get your information. All the things that we've been talking about.
Yeah.
There's the police. People have been sharing the Police's song "Don't Stand So Close to Me," which makes a lot of sense, except it is about a teacher having an inappropriate relationship with a student, so there's that.
That.
Yeah.
But this is an opportunity for new music to be introduced, because people are so open to listening to anything and watching anything, and this is an opportunity for streaming, for artists that didn't exist 2 weeks ago. So that's really kind of cool.
There's the coronavirus rap, speaking of which.
Yeah.
That was posted. We'll put a link to that. Let me finish this. The best virus movies. So this is along with Gallows
Contagion.
kind of thing. Yeah. Well, so Glamour, Christopher Rosa has a list of 20 some of them. And they're separated into different categories. There's the virus movies proper, which is Bird Box on Netflix. That was popular a while back. Blindness, in which there's a contagion that makes everybody blind.
Book. Yeah.
There's the old school Andromeda Strain from back in the day, and then they listed The Day After Tomorrow, which really isn't a virus movie; it's a climate change movie, and then a bunch of zombie movies, which often start out as a virus or a contagion, and then everybody turns into zombies. So there's World War Z. That was a good movie. Quarantine, I think I've seen it, but I don't remember. I Am Legend with Will Smith, really good movie. 28 Days Later is a fantastic
That was
zombie
a great movie, yeah.
The best thing about that is they're super fast. They're not the slow dragging foot zombies.
That was a great movie.
And then Dawn of the Dead, of course. So, but the ones that you want to watch if you really want to have a realistic portrayal of what a pandemic is, Contagion is the one to watch with Gwyneth Paltrow. She comes back from Hong Kong to Minnesota and starts spreading in my home state. Damn it! And then Outbreak with what's his name? I can't remember. Anyway, those are the two ones. Oh, and then lastly, if you want hyper realistic, there's The Hot Zone from National Geographic, which is a documentary about the Ebola virus that emerged in 1989. So that's kind of some real stuff.
So also real, and we've been going back and forth with politics here, but also real is that at one of his rallies, disguised as a briefing, Trump said that Google had a national website and that they were launching it immediately, and Google immediately said, no, we're not. Well, so their triage website is actually, this is pretty funny because it was promoted as national, but it's really just a Google form, and it's only for 2 counties in California. This is from a mobile health news story by Dave Muo. And so it's they can complete a survey regarding their current condition, and if they meet certain criteria, they can be referred to a nearby mobile testing site. It's conducted through Verily's Project Baseline population health effort and developed with federal, state, and local health authorities, but it's not national. And it just asks if you have symptoms that are severe, whether you're older than 18, and whether you live within 50 miles of Santa Clara County or San Mateo County. Now they've launched a checklist kind of a site that just refers you to information, gives you symptoms. It's just to be like in a central place, which is cool. But that wasn't true.
Yeah, well, as much
So
of that.
the Army social media manager was fired because he did some sort of inappropriate tweet, trying to be funny, I guess. So he was unnamed, but he's no longer in his position.
So we don't know what the
We don't
offense
know
was.
because they took it down. Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't
okay.
know. I mean, I don't think anybody's tracked it yet.
Right. Well, here's a nice story about how some companies are adapting. Um, Willie's American Guitar, which I've talked about them on the show before about their use of Facebook, which is fantastic, and they're using that again they publish videos. And so what they had done in the past is when they have a cool new guitar, and all Willie's American Guitars does is sell vintage American guitars. So when they have a really cool one come in, the owner comes in, he talks about it and why it's cool, and plays it a little bit and everything. Now they're going, so they have a little shop in St. Paul, Minnesota, which is any professional musician that comes in usually stops by because it's the place. And they have a little shop there, but they are doing appointment only now. So if you want to actually play one of their guitars, you have to make an appointment to do it, and they're taking all the precautions so that they're not having a bunch of people in there to spread the virus. But they sell online, so they're still taking orders online. They're still shipping. But one of the things they're doing now is on Facebook, they're giving 2-minute guitar lessons, which are very nice.
I
Just
love
quick
that.
lessons on their beautiful guitars. And then they're also giving guitar history lessons. So they'll have one particular vintage guitar that will talk about why it's so fantastic and so they're talking about Eric Clapton buying up these Fender Stratocasters that don't have a tremolo bar. He loves those. And so he's buying up 50s era tremolo Fender Strats. So it's very entertaining if you're a guitarist. Very clever way of pivoting in the new reality, and keeping them top of mind. And also notice that these posts are sponsored. So he's promoting these posts too. While a lot of people are cutting their ad budgets, he's taking advantage of the unique selling proposition that he has, because guitars actually are an investment. So people are, if you want your money to accumulate, an actual good investment is a vintage guitar that will actually increase in value. So
Unlike your 401k.
right.
So this is a clever thing. This is an AI app called Don't Touch Your Face. And I was just sitting here looking at you with my hand on my face. But what it does is it uses your webcam, and you train a machine learning algorithm. It's called TensorFlow, and it recognizes you touching your face and not touching your face. And once it's trained, it watches and it alerts you when you touch your face. And on the website, it says, do you keep my information? And it says, nope, the whole site runs locally. All the calculations from your webcam and alerts from your computer are never sent over the internet. So it's just kind of funny because it's impossible to stop touching your face. And the more you want to not do it, the more your nose itches, which mine is doing right now. I mean, just thinking about not touching my face makes me want to touch
Yeah,
my
I know, face. Right? It's impossible. Here's another adjusting to the new reality. So, restaurants have been devastated in Minnesota. Our governor has shut down all non-essential businesses restaurants can sell carryout, and they're looking into letting restaurants sell carryout alcohol too. And one of the state representatives put out a question on Facebook about whether we should do this or not. I'm like, do it. They need all the help they can get. Gift cards, buying a gift card from your favorite restaurant is not going to help them that much. I mean, it's appreciated, but
we have delivery and takeout. And however, if you live in an apartment building, they're not going to let the takeout come to your door. So these poor guys are not going to get their tips. Yeah. So they're asking you to put it on the credit card, but notoriously they don't see their tips when they're on the credit card. Yeah. So, there's another.
Come on.
No, you're not done.
Finish my story.
Finish your story, Dave. Sorry.
I didn't even start it. I was just talking about
Okay,
the
go ahead.
restaurants. So there's a one in a town next door to mine in Chaska, Victoria. There is a tap room. Do you have tap rooms in? You have tap rooms in New York, don't you?
I don't really know because I don't
Oh,
drink,
that's
but I
right.
think we
Okay.
might.
Okay. So tap rooms are basically big beer halls that they don't sell much food. They really just make craft beer and sell it on
Oh, we
site.
have that, yeah.
Yeah. So there is one called Enki. Enki is a Sumerian god, and they have some fantastic brews. I've been there a couple of times, but obviously they don't want people coming in anymore. So they are selling curbside takeouts. They sell their cans. They can their beer, and they will sell it by curbside. So they quickly pivoted. I mean, this is a small business, one tap room owned by one guy, and they set up a Square site to sell their beers through online. So you go to the site, order what you want, and then text them when you get there, and they will come and bring out your beer, and they're actually selling food that way as well. And of course, you need to show your ID, so make sure you're of age. But it's a very quick pivot for them to do that, and I will be going back, thankfully, for their fantastic beer.
That's a great thing. Don't you wonder why every single business feels like they have to send you an email about the coronavirus? I think I must have had a couple hundred of those by now. And, there was one this morning from Best Buy, and Best Buy is doing curbside, and their employees who are working are volunteers. They've all gotten a raise for as long as they do it. And they were announcing their policy that they will pay people who are quarantined and people who have to stay home to take care of their kids. They'll pay them. They didn't say for how long, but for whatever period they're doing it, that's a good thing. But some of them are just like, well, we're here for you. Like, you had to send me an email to say that. It's like,
Yeah, I think, I mean, if you have I want to know, like my retailers that I'm going to be going to. So Target, I got an email from telling me what they are doing to make me safe when I go there.
right.
That's what I want to know. I would like to know that companies that I frequent that are basically laying off a lot of people through no fault of their own, how they're trying to make life easier for those people that they're laying off. I would like to know about that, right?
That I
But
would.
if you've got nothing to say, don't
Yeah,
feel
just don't
compelled
do
to
it.
say it.
Right. But, one of my nephews is a manager at Target, and they're intentionally not totally restocking the shelves so that people won't hoard. And, but they have plenty of everything. They just aren't putting it out all at once.
Yeah,
Except toilet paper. You cannot buy toilet paper, except I bought some that appears to be made in Iran. Go figure.
They are putting pallets of toilet paper out at the grocery stores in Chaska, and they're gone in an hour.
Wow.
I mean, it's like, people, there's plenty of toilet paper to go around. That's the least of your worries right now.
Well, last week,
Except for everybody else panicking about buying toilet paper.
well, last week on eBay, which is where I usually buy my 36 rolls of toilet paper, the one I paid $29 for in February was selling for $99 before they ran out, which is disgusting. But my local drugstore hasn't done price gouging, but a lot of stores have. I've been noticing like the price, for example, I went to the store, I bought a big container of blueberries for $6. 2 days later, with a little container of blueberries for $6. I guess they feel like they can do it, so they will.
That's too bad. Here's another thing that's too bad. Fox News is too bad. So Andrew Kaczynski of CNN put together a before and after compilation of Fox News coverage of when the coronavirus was a Democratic hoax meant to damage Trump.
A mere, 10 days ago?
Yeah, to when after Trump pivoted and started talking about it being serious. In what they're saying now, and some of which is, we've always taken the coronavirus seriously. Literally, Hannity saying it's a hoax to we've never perpetrated. It's bullshit. but it's a great before and after to demonstrate. The thing about Fox News is, and Trump himself actually, is they are putting their own people at risk. They're putting Trump's own supporters. He's costing their lives.
Exactly. It's a life and death
Fox
matter now.
viewers, they're literally putting their viewers in peril by the way that they've covered this.
Go look at what happened in Miami and on the beaches in Texas. I mean, you know, those weren't all Trump supporters. What was that all about? But they had to close the beaches, and, you know, kids were thinking they were invincible. And then it turns out that 40% of people with this virus are under the age of 30, and many are in their 20s. And, you know, it's just, we're all in this. That's all there is to it, you know. But there's another thing that I came upon. This is via Product Hunt, that wonderful site. And it's kind of an Instagram library that has a bunch of education-oriented posts on social media in these bite-sized learnings around product design, UX, marketing, and branding. And it's called booklets.io, and it's got a lot of really good information in it. You know, it's a great time to be teaching yourself stuff, to be learning.
Yeah, well, speaking of your last comment about the beaches, I've got a list of kind of under the headline "Idiots Will Cost Lives."
Yeah.
So there's that video of the beaches being crowded. There's a tweet from somebody about police going down Bourbon Street in New Orleans, telling people to go home, stop partying, you're endangering lives. Devin Nunes telling Fox viewers to go out to bars and restaurants.
Yep, I saw that.
There's some Gen Zer. We'll put these in the show notes. This is from Barstool Sports tweeted this video. Some Gen Z are saying, I have a compromised immune system, but I'm only 21, so I'm fine. Video of the crowded airports due to Trump's abrupt travel ban. I mean, literally forcing people in to crowded spaces because you're not thought out travel ban. And then the spring break bro of,
that was crazy.
I'm not going to let coronavirus stop me from partying, dude. Oh my God.
You know, my friends came back from Mexico one day before they closed the border. They were in Mexico for the winter, and they realized that this might happen. And so they cut their trip short by a couple of weeks. And so they were in 3 airports. They had to go from where they were to Mexico City and then somewhere else, and then finally to Newark. And in no place did anybody take their temperature. Did anybody, you know, they said to them, are you sick? And I think at one point they filled out some sort of form, but, you know, there was absolutely no effort whatsoever to find out if these people were coming in from another country who were sick.
Well, it doesn't even matter because you can be asymptomatic and still spread. So it's like, yeah. One of the things I've noticed too, we talked about the news coverage and how everybody's broadcasting from home. You're seeing people's interiors of the apartments and their homes and stuff, and all the technical glitches that go along with this. The other thing is television commercials. So one Golden Corral television commercials with bowling buddies that closes with the guys high-fiving. All of a sudden, people high-fiving. No, don't do that. Cruise ship commercials that ran well after the outbreak.
They're still on. They're still on. Yes. And also like resort commercials.
Yeah,
and,
right.
You know,
Sandals, resorts, they're all, yeah.
Wow. I mean, what a waste of money.
Mercedes-Benz had like people in a boxing ring and walking down a crowded street. There's a Tesla commercial from swimming pool scenes. There's a game detergent
people
commercial.
Hugging.
Yep. There's a game detergent commercial with a guy who gets into the back half of a unicorn suit at a children's party.
Yeah.
They're super spreaders. No, get away.
No, there's some awful ones. There's some really awful ones. One of the ones, I mean, this has nothing to do with coronavirus, but in terms of awful commercials, there's a picture of a Big Mac, and they're saying, like, does this look delicious? Do you want this? And I, who don't eat meat, are thinking, no, that's the most disgusting thing I ever saw. And then it says, do you want it now? I'm like, no, I'm never going to want it. Oh, it's disgusting. You know, I mean, just like, why would anybody at this point in time be thinking that they don't have to pull those commercials? It's just really
Yeah.
hard to understand. And
Yeah.
they're showing people in bars and people in restaurants having a
Yeah.
great old time. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So, but one thing, like, there are some, you don't need a gym to stay fit. All the gyms are closed, but there's other ways, and you can use VR and AR. So I have a link to VR workouts that you can do while you're quarantined, and they got killer cardio workouts. Personally, I'm going up and down the stairs in my building.
I've got a list of live cams from a Fast Company article that has live cams from around the world. Times Square, so you can watch how completely deserted Times Square is compared to normal. There's one for St. Paul, Minnesota. There's Chicago. There's Miami Beach, so we can check in on Miami Beach and see. I actually did look at that one, and there's nobody there anymore. So sounds like
Yeah.
people took heed.
But I go to Central Park every morning with the dog, and everybody's there with their dogs. We're allowed to be off leash until 9, and you know, you just have to like stand far away. But the dogs are still playing. So this morning was like 9:30, and the parks enforcement came around with their microphones. Leash your dogs. I'm like, why? We're the only people here. What are we interrupting? You know? Well, they're only doing their jobs. You know, that philosophy. I like to think of it as the Nuremberg philosophy, but. We were only doing our jobs. We were following orders. But I came across something that a friend of mine, Debbie Irwin, is a wonderful voiceover artist, and she's part of something called Blue Wave Voiceovers, and they're all freelance voiceover people and full-time professionals and they have dedicated broadcast studios in their homes, and they want to they're dedicated to serving mission-driven groups, nonprofit organizations, and democratic and progressive candidates for office. And they're teaming up with everyone from media and content producers to campaign communications professionals, anybody who wants to work toward a blue wave this November. Kind of a nice idea.
Very good. I've got a couple of cool tools here. One of which is a necessity in this age of social distancing. This is from a USA Today article by Charles Trepany, who reports on Netflix Party, which is a Chrome extension for you to watch Netflix movies with your friends. So
Really?
yeah, so everyone who with whom you want to watch a movie with or a TV show with through Netflix needs the extension installed. So we'll put a link to the extension in the show notes. But you go to Netflix, play the show you want to watch, click on the Netflix Party button that's in your browser, click start the party, copy the URL, email it to your friends, and your friends should visit the link, log in Netflix, and click on the party button. Then you can all watch the movie together. So that's a nice, a little bit complicated, but not too complicated. Fairly easy instructions, but a way to watch Netflix movies together. And then the Moog and Korg synthesizer makers, this is from a Pitchfork article by Evan Minsker, have released for limited time their synthesizer apps. So Mini Moog is a classic synthesizer, Korg has a classic synthesizer, and their mobile apps you can download for free now. And I've downloaded them and played around with them. They're awfully fun. So there you go. A couple of things to way to spend your time.
Yeah. So how I've been spending my time is working on the production of Selling a President 2020. And we finally launched our first episode. And the name of the first episode is Fear Sells. And it is about the marketing phenomenon who is Donald Trump. And the episode starts out with one of the participants talking about how nothing that Donald Trump does seems to bother his constituents in any way. If he said, I slept with your wife, they would say, well, that's all right. I wasn't paying attention to her, or she probably deserved that. And so he came to the conclusion, after doing a study of Trump supporters, that there is literally nothing you can do to change their mind about him. But what they were talking about in the episode is that he uses fear to sell himself, and his ads are not about issues like other political ads. They're people at his rallies saying, yeah, you're great, you're right, yeah, great economy, yay. And he doesn't really have to say much of anything, and he just uses the fear.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a known it's known that anger. So when you drive people to anger, it turns off their information-seeking inclinations. So the more angry you are, the less likely you are to search out information to determine whether the thing that you are angry about is actually rational or not. So yeah, it makes a lot. That's a must listen. That's a must listen episode right there.
It really is interesting.
Speaking of politics, this is completely alarming, and probably we should have let off the show with this because it's so alarming. This is from a Betsy Woodruff Swan article on Politico, and then Rolling Stone's Peter Wade is where I found it from. But the Trump Department of Justice has asked Congress to craft legislation that would allow chief judges to indefinitely hold people without trial and suspend their other constitutionally protected rights during coronavirus and other emergencies. That is absolutely alarming if you have no trust in this Justice Department or this administration, which I do not.
Not at all.
What I would recommend everyone who we'll put the links in the show notes, copy those links, go to your senators or your representatives, all of your senators and representatives' Facebook pages, paste it in there, and say how outraged you are about this and what are they doing to prevent this from happening, and keep an eye on the post and respond to other people so that there's activity around the post, so it rises to the top, so that those representatives and those senators pay attention to it and know that there's complete opposition to this, because this is dangerous. There's a phrase in politics called "never let a crisis go to waste," and if you don't trust this group, this is a crisis that they may not want to waste.
You also need to call your congressman and your senator, and you need to make sure that your voice is heard. This is really crucial. This is crazy. The thing that I read that curled my hair was that it is possible for the president and Congress to delay the election. And yeah, I don't think that could pass Congress, but given the
I might be wrong. Maybe there's something, but from what I understand, they can't do that because that is a gubernatorial decision that's made. I mean, we administer our elections. Each state administers their own elections.
No, it's a particular power that I'll send you the link.
Right.
But yes, it does exist. You have an interesting one about finding what the busy hours are.
Oh, right. Yeah. So this is a pro tip. When you decide to go, you need to go to the grocery store or your pharmacy. What I recommend is search for your local grocery store or pharmacy that you want to go to on Google and find their local Google My Business account, and click on that and scroll down. You'll find the most popular times for that particular location, so that you can find a time to go which is the least popular. So be around fewer people when you need to do your grocery shopping or go to the pharmacy. The only caveat to that I would recommend is a lot of grocery stores now are reserving the first hour of business in the morning for the elderly and crucial, healthcare workers and so forth to do their shopping. So respect that. But with this tool, then you'll find out when the least popular times are, least populated stores are. And the other pro tool I've got is for those of you who have been forced to start working from home. This is from a Gizmodo article by David Neild, which gives instructions on how to create multiple virtual desktops so you can separate your work life from your personal life while you're working from home. There's instructions for how to do this in Windows, Mac OS, and Chrome OS, and it's pretty easy. So we'll put the link to that in the show notes as well.
I've talked to so many people who are working at home and they just really, you know, they're very discombobulated about it. I've done it for so many years. And my tip about that is you must get up, you must take a shower, you must get dressed, you must wear shoes, you should wear pants. You, you know, I mean, you should do your hair and your makeup like you were going out, and put on your jewelry and do everything that you would do if you were going out to a job, and sit down and work. And then make sure, a lot of people are doing the Pomodoro method with other people, to make sure you get up. Because once you're sitting here, you know, nobody's interrupting you, nothing's happening, and you have to make sure you get up every hour and walk around. So, you know, but I tell people, like, you must get dressed. That's really important.
Good words to live by.
Yeah, really. Wear
are we gonna-
clothes, wear pants.
Let's wrap this up with some numbers here. I've got two sets of numbers this time. The first set is from Michael Tesler at Washington Post, that red states are finally starting to Google coronavirus. So it turns out how strongly a state supported Donald Trump in 2016 is inversely related to how frequently its residents search for coronavirus over the past month. Google search rates were almost twice as high in states where Trump was the least popular as they were in states where he won super majorities of voters in 2016. Fascinating graph there. Again, the information ecosphere of Trump voters versus non-Trump voters, and how deadly that can be if you're not, you know, paying attention. So put the graph in the show notes and a link to the story in the show notes. And then secondly, with the legislation that is being considered in Congress for helping American workers, who are a lot of you know, states, my state included, are expanding unemployment insurance. And the legislation I've seen talked about doesn't really address freelance nation
At all.
So if you are a freelancer, you can't take advantage of unemployment benefits because you're self-employed. 57 million Americans freelanced in 2019, at least in part or full time. That represented 35% of the workforce last year. 28% of Americans freelance full time in 2019. So, you know, this legislation that helps a lot of freelancers, that can go from Uber drivers, Lyft drivers to us, to marketers and communicators. You know, if the legislation doesn't address that as well, a lot of freelancers losing their work because of how people are reacting to this economy, then there's a significant 28%, more than a quarter of the workforce. Will be
Well,
left
and
out cold.
also they're talking about, you know, the stimulus where they're going to send money to everybody. Yes, only those people who made more than $40,000 a year.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
which
that's a big
means
FU
that
to
the
people.
people who need the money the most are not going to get it.
Yeah.
And that is really revolting.
Yeah.
And, you know, what I saw this morning on TV that really is distressing is all the people who are buying guns, because people are saying, hey, there's no toilet paper now. What happens when there's no food? And I want to be prepared. And what if someone knocks on my door? People are getting nuts. You have to be calm.
Well, wait. People have already been nuts. The gun sales that's been going on for a long time.
Oh, God.
It's
We have to get through this in a calmer way.
Yeah.
You know, unless people calm down, it's not going to get any better.
Yeah.
That's really the truth. But anyway, that brings us to the end of this protracted Beyond Social Media Show, episode 300. We've been doing this since 2013, which is pretty freaking amazing if you ask me. But you find us by searching the Beyond Social Media Show. We're everywhere. We're everywhere you would be listening to podcasts as well. You can get all the show notes and the links to everything we talked about and the videos we discussed at beyondsocialmediashow.com/300. And I'm here with David Erickson. On Twitter, he's D Erickson. On Instagram, he's DE Erickson. Someday you'll tell me what that extra E is for.
Edward.
Edward, okay. On YouTube, he's eStrategy, and he blogs at e-strategyblog.com, which is a wonderful blog that you should definitely subscribe to. I am What's Next on Twitter. My blog is What's Next blog. My YouTube channel is also What's Next blog. On Instagram, I have Lucy the Rescue Puppy, and we are BeyondSocialMediaShow.com, and on Twitter we are at BS Media Show, and we will be back next week. Hopefully not all coronavirus all the time by that time, and please stay safe and please stay well.
Stay safe, stay well, and be kind to each other.